Thank you very much for your patience. This meeting of the Preservation Board is now in order. I'm going to call a roll to determine who's here. Commissioner Allen, are you here?
Present.
Commissioner Hamilton, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, are you here?
Present.
Narayan, Richardson, and Robinson, are you here? Okay, there's 5 commissioners present. That constitutes a quorum. We can begin. Commissioners, has anyone read the minutes of the last meeting? And Barb, do you want to say something?
Oh, the last motion on the last item, the remand, that was very long, I'm sure you recall. I would just ask that everybody carefully review it. I'm sure we'd all appreciate your eyes on that with any, since it's probably the longest motion we've had, at least since 2005.
So do we want to do the minutes today, or do we want to Commissioner Richardson to come back?
Let's wait.
Yeah, I did review them, but I think I'd rather have you
Let's
guys
wait,
on
as
them.
you say.
He made that motion, right?
Yes, he did.
He did.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Commissioners, take a look at the agenda for today. Does anybody need to recuse themselves from any of these items?
Is Commissioner Richardson with us on TV?
Oh, yeah.
He was maybe going to join remotely. I
He did not.
did not. Okay, I was going to say. It was his motion, but
Right. So is this okay for the order for the meeting?
fine.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, hearing no
I don't
objections?
delay it.
Understood. This will be our agenda. I've got the sign-up sheets. Let's start with agenda item A.
Jan Cameron with the Cultural Resources Office. This is a preliminary review.
Are you supposed to have audio?
Sorry.
We can't really hear you. He's wondering if your microphone's working.
The only microphone here I see is channel 2.
So we've been using this one. This one kind of picked you up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Jan Cameron, Cultural Resources Office. This is a preliminary review application for the construction of a 4-story building. And, hang on just a second. The proposed building will require the demolition of 3 historic buildings, which are contributing resources to the Oak Hill National Register Historic District. And these are the 3. One of them is hidden behind a tree there on the left. But they are all contributing structures, and they date from 1895 to 1903, I believe. Okay. There's a little bit of a shot of 3146 Morgan Ford. It's a vernacular shotgun with some very interesting details at its cornice, and some alterations, but nothing of significance that would compromise its contribution to the district. Similarly, this is 3148 Morgan Ford, a 2-story commercial residential building. It had some alterations with a new, very current then storefront done about 1925 with the new vitrolite glazing and black tile. That alteration has attained significance, and it is a contributing building. And finally, on the corner is this very interesting classic revival building, a sort of a Queen Anne massing, and it is contributing. There is a 1-story addition that you can see in the slide to the right. That was probably added as a doctor's office or some kind of commercial space to the building prior to 1903, and therefore is also contributing to the historic district. The concern that the staff has is not necessarily with the actual design of the proposed building, but its scale and exterior materials do not appear to be contextual with the historic district, which at this point is very small scale, 1- and 2-story commercial buildings, primarily with some residences mixed in. This is the context just to the north. The site is at the very far right of the right-hand slide. And now proceeding southward towards the site, and you can see those two buildings on the right are part of the project area. We continue to proceed down Morgan Ford to the south. This is the MoFo building by the same developer that was completed, I don't know, a year ago, maybe? Really? Seems longer than that. But anyway, that one was not reviewed by the board because the site was vacant. So the only jurisdiction that the board has here is over the demolition of the historic structures under 64689. Okay. We're proceeding again down block, and again, you can see this relatively small scale of the commercial district. And now we're back up at the site looking towards Tower Grove Park. You can see how very close it is to the park. And this is the 1903 Sanborn with the buildings indicated. The bottom three. This is the proposed design. You can see that it's a rather elegant concept. It has stone, metal panels, and a green wall. We had a very interesting meeting with the proposed developer. We tried to think of some ways to blend this more into the context of the district. Talked about exterior materials and colors and trying to get it lower. Instead, it really needs to be 4 stories and completely fill the property for the building to be viable. So there was very little negotiation room on this. And this is a shot, since I didn't have a street elevation showing the new building in context, I did the best I could to give you an idea of what the scale would be when the building's completed and how different it is from the existing historic fabric there. Okay. Now, there are a couple of historic large buildings melded in with the historic thing. Besides the MoFo building, there's this one, but it's only 3 stories, and it has 2 stories flanking it, where the historic buildings were actually preserved. The building wraps around them. So the context is a little bit better here, but again, we are kind of limited with what can be done. The MoFo is also only 3 stories. And it seemed to me in analyzing the area that was kind of the breaking point. Once you go before more than 3 stories, then the context is really very difficult to blend in. So I would like to mention that we've received a number of letters in support of the project, which you should all have received copies of. So I won't belabor the point, but I will say that an additional one, the only one in opposition, was from Bill Seibert, who was outside the district, but was very concerned about the effect of the proposed building on the streetscape. And I'll mention that we have a letter from the Alderwoman Velasquez, who has several conditions to her approval. They're actually the same conditions as the Tower Grove South Neighborhoods Association. But the only one that really would pertain to us is number 4, which asks that the developer secure financing and permits prior to demolition of the current buildings. With that, the staff is recommending that the proposed preliminary review approval be withheld.
Questions for Jan, commissioners?
So, we haven't reviewed a lot of projects in this district, so can you clarify? I'm sorry, I say we haven't reviewed a lot of projects in this district, so I'm just wondering, can you clarify what the rules are related to tearing down buildings? What do they have to?
Sure, I can go through that. That's the most critical thing is the architectural significance of the buildings. These are considered merit structures as they contribute to a National Register district. Then there's the soundness of the building, that they're able to remain erect within 6 months. Now, obviously, these buildings are occupied currently or were until recently, so there's no structural issues with this. Secondly, there would be the effect on the streetscape, and I think I explained that the streetscape is going to change greatly with the construction of the new building. And finally, we review the subsequent proposed construction, that it should be contextual with the neighborhood, and I think it clearly is not.
Thanks, James.
Further questions, commissioners?
Just to clarify, the other two buildings by the same developer, or they are by the same developer,
I'm
right?
not sure about one of them, but the MoFo certainly is.
Okay, but no demolitions reviewed by your office?
Demolitions involved. Well, there was a car wash that was demolished on the site of the MoFu, but it was 2 years before the MoFu came in.
Right.
So we didn't get sent the proposed demolition. And also, the other one was a vacant lot at the time.
So this isn't a local historic district, correct?
It is not. The only
Preservation
jurisdiction we
Review.
have is over the Preservation Review District.
Thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the applicant, please. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, thank you for having me. My name is Rob Maltby. I'm one of the owners of AHM Group. And Jan, you can skip this slide.
This one, okay.
Yeah, well, I can, and just go to the building. So, really for us, having built MoFo and have been working with the neighborhood, and it was the 15th Ward and now the 6th Ward for some time, the precedent for us has always been to get more people back into the city of St. Louis. I myself lived on Utah Street, not Place, for a long time, and renovated my own house, and really fell in love with the neighborhood because I used to go to Amsterdam Tavern, still do, to go watch soccer because I didn't grow up here. So I've always been enamored by the neighborhood. This is a really tough project for us to do because we've actually never.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yes.
St. Louis has a very fine soccer team now.
I have season tickets. Don't worry. So thank you. And so for us, it's been a bittersweet conversation about moving this project forward. I think we come from this obviously from a different perspective, is really getting more people back in the city of St. Louis and having precedent from 3172 Morgan Ford. We now have about 42 residents, 60% of whom have come from outside the city of St. Louis and also from outside the state. So our second project along Morgan Ford, we really, really, really wanted to keep the existing building, which is from 1904. And these three buildings have been very sparsely inhabited for some time, and I don't believe there's been any economic activity from them outside of the sandwich shop and homegrown hair, and maybe when I moved into the neighborhood there was sort of an ad hoc wine bar, but otherwise it's been relatively activity-free from an economic standpoint. So our proposal, and Jan, if you want to keep going forward, is to ask to demolish these three structures so that we can build a 4-story, 36-unit apartment building on the corner of Juniata and Morganford. And our hope here is to attract about between 40 and 50 new residents to the Morganford Business District and Tower Grove South neighborhood in an effort to kind of continue to support and grow the business district as it's sort of seen development over the last 10 or so years. I think from our standpoint, the impact of 3172 Morganford, which was our first building, is different from this because we were able to provide that 6,500 square foot of commercial space that is now finally leased, operating and occupied. With that has come increased sales tax revenue, full-time equivalent jobs, and also it's a big attractor and help support and stabilize the neighborhood at large. This footprint is about 11,000 square feet, so approximately 6,500 less than 3172 Morganford. And so because of that, we cannot put commercial space within this footprint in order to hit the 1-to-1 ratio of parking. So Jan, if you can keep going to that'd be great. This is fine. Yeah, so the project itself would be about $11 million. That's about $305,000 a unit. The materials that you're seeing here are limestone, steel, glass, with a green wall, and then we do have some either cedar plank or that would be cement. So we're trying to use materials that are actually in the neighborhood currently. It would be a market rate building, and we are not seeking any incentives from the city of St. Louis. Obviously, in order to support market rate apartments, we do need to have density and to make our marginal cost per unit less. So because of that, we have to go up 4 stories, as opposed to the neighboring Morgan Ford, 3172 Morgan Ford building, in which we are at 3 stories. And then we do have a 4th story on our 3201 Morgan Ford building, which is just a block away at Wyoming and Morgan Ford, which flanks the existing structure from 1904. So for us, we know that architecturally, everything is subjective. A lot of people don't like the design. We're biased. We're biased. We like the design, and we like working with the architect. This is our 3rd go around with them, and our hope here was to continue the progression of getting more transplants to St. Louis, to the neighborhood that has a strong demand already, in an effort to continue to sort of grow and enhance and provide economic activity to the local businesses that are already existing. And so with this, our hope was that by adding sort of about 30 new residents to the city of St. Louis based on our data we have from other buildings, we'd be able to impact the property taxes by about, right now it's $5,400 for all 3 properties per year, and we think a stabilized tax base for this building will be, for property tax, will be about $100,000. We also have the impact to the city earnings tax, which we think will be roughly about $20,000 to $28,000, depending on the average income of the tenant. And then obviously to be determined would be the retail sales tax impacts to the rest of the surrounding businesses. We started this process working through the prescribed channels that we'd been through prior with Alderwoman Green, now President Green, and she advised that we work with Mark Abbott and the Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association before we did anything. So back in October of 2022, we started this process, which then led to, I think, 2 public neighborhood meetings, a subsequent survey of the Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association and Tower Grove South residents to come up with sort of general support for the project that included, questions and things that they wanted to incorporate. After that, we had support from the new 6th Ward alderperson, Daniela Velasquez, and we've then been gathering support from the local business community. I think we have 12 letters of support from businesses within the 2 to 3 block vicinity of this project, and so far we're really excited, and I think we're kind of happy to continue the discussion. So, and Jan, I think that's probably it. We have some high-res renderings that if you want to go to the last slide. Here we go, yeah, and so you can see this is our architect went and surveyed the existing neighborhood and tried to pick out and find materials that did match what we were hoping to incorporate. Happy to take any questions if anyone has.
Commissioners, questions for the applicant?
Oh, do you want to mention the
Sure, yeah.
balcony?
Yeah, so the balcony?
Yes.
Yeah. So each unit.
That was your mention?
No, sorry. Each unit we try and provide where possible private balcony space, which somewhat serendipitously we did for MoFo, and then the pandemic happened a year later. And so all of our residents were very fortunate that they had their own secluded outdoor space, which allows us also to not go up any higher and provide a rooftop amenity. I personally think that the neighborhood in Tower Grove South is the amenity for a lot of these buildings, and it's a huge draw from people who are moving here from the coasts or other cities that are, perhaps have a higher notoriety, true or not, than St. Louis, and they're attracted to this neighborhood because they lived in analogous properties in DC or Seattle or New York, for example.
Question, did you, is this thing working? Yeah.
Yes.
Did you all look at, as you did across the street, incorporating at least that commercial mixed-use building into your design?
So on this one, we didn't, primarily because we knew that to achieve a project that is as expensive as it is to build, at $305,000 a unit, and have the footprint we have and provide the parking, we wouldn't have been able to necessarily achieve the rents we would have been able to get. Candidly, from when we founded the company in 2016, we had 3 of us. We now have a staff of 20. I did every single lease at 3172 Morgan Ford in parking, like it or not, in St. Louis seems to be sort of an axiom, and everyone wants it and everyone needs it. We did have on our first project, and sort of giving you some context, a lot of pushback from the neighborhood about having street parking. And so we've tried to mitigate any impact to the street with traffic flow going in and out of the building. So we found that in order to achieve executed leases, people do want to have private off-street parking, and in order to do this project and keep it market rate and get everyone to move in and make the project viable, we did not have the footprint to incorporate retail into that. I will mention that one of the tenant that's currently in the middle building at 3148 Morgan Ford has executed a lease to move and expand her existing business into storefront space at 3201, and she's anticipating adding about 40 to 50% new, or more employees than she currently has. And our hope was that by providing a building like this, we would also now have more residents and more customers for the business district to help offset the fact that she would be losing her business residents.
Well, that building that I'm making reference to is one of the most charming buildings on that street, and it's one of the buildings that kind of draws me to that district. I just wondered if that could be considered. Do you feel like you're taking some of the I don't know, nostalgia away from that street and replacing it with this modern structure? And also we are facing the street of Morgan Ford with ivy. I mean, there's nothing alive until you get to there is, but there's nothing really happening in that building for most of the facade. So I'm just wondering if that was considered in the design.
So, I mean, short answer is no. Economically, we had to make this pencil out and make the project viable from an investment standpoint and from a debt service standpoint. The green wall that you see in the picture is just that. When we had discussions with the Talgrove South Neighborhood Association and then the older woman, that is something that we're willing to activate a little bit more. In fact, if the project does move forward, we will be working with the Talgrove South Neighborhood Association to have their input on what the green wall as it currently looks like would ultimately be. So this rendering is probably 2 years old, a year and a half to 2 years old, and that's something that we would certainly consider.
Okay, thank you.
Glad to see a lot of your projects do engage small businesses, so thank you for that. But under the Preservation Ordinance 64689, which we have to consider in making this decision regarding merit buildings, one of our criteria is reuse potential. So potential of structure for renovation and reuse based on similar cases within the city, and cost and extent of possible renovation should be evaluated. Are you telling us, and this is just an open question, it's not, thank you, that there is reuse potential and you just are not interested in pursuing that, or are you contending that there is no reuse potential for these three buildings? I just want to get the facts on the record.
Question.
Yeah.
I think for us, highest and best use is to provide higher density to the neighborhood and provide more impact economically to the existing business district, which I feel like since post-COVID has really started to emerge as a really viable and fun part of St. Louis. So from our standpoint, we've really only considered this iteration, and primarily that was because this made the most sense economically. On 3201, we were more adamant about reusing this existing structure, primarily because we were able to do so. Now, as a result of that, we are delayed, and we've had some cost overruns on keeping that building. Whereas, had we talked to our architects or construction team, the recommendation was to demolish it. So from our standpoint, it is challenging because obviously we are looking at this from a perspective of how can we continue to do what we've done on at least one precedent project and hopefully two, and make this profitable, viable, and appealing to people that want to either invest with us or lend us money. And I think the challenge we have with renovating the three existing structures would be the cost to renovate in ratio to what we could get from rental for apartment living or floor, for ground floor retail is not there economically. Additionally, we see that the offset of the impact of this project would be providing economically higher benefits to the neighborhood via increased taxes, sales tax from patrons of restaurants and shops than it would just one or two people or one business being in a renovated building that's cost prohibitive to us. Furthermore, the cost to acquire these 3 buildings is about 3 times as much as what we paid for the 3172 Morgan Ford Car Wash, and we're already on a much higher basis in order to make the project work.
And I'll have to be very careful with the squeaky microphone, but
sorry.
one other question, did you consider or look at other sites along Morgan Ford for this project, or did this project sort of come from your interest in this corner?
So, I guess the foment of the project began when one of my partners purchased the single-family home on the 3146 Morgan Ford. And then subsequently, we ended up purchasing 3150 Morgan Ford, which is the corner property, and then the middle one was the last that we acquired about 1.5 years ago. So once we had all 3 properties, that was when we started to really think, what can we do with this? And I'm biased because I've had success with a project down the street. It's, for us, the path of least resistance was, obviously to continue to do what we know that works and has been successful and has helped sort of activate the streetscape for the past 3 to 4 years.
You could probably consider us the resistance.
Okay. We expect that, it's.
So I have a question, because I guess there's several letters from several businesses wanting this project to move forward. I myself deal with a lot of relocation people, and Tower Grove South, especially people coming into the universities, this is one of their top neighborhoods they want, and they want it because of the historic charm. So I understand there's all these letters from various businesses. What is the neighborhood saying? The actual residents in the historic homestead, are they pushing? Because to me, yes, and I love the idea. I lived in DC. I love these. Okay, there's a sign-up sheet, but I want to hear from your perspective. Have you tried to? And I understand the neighborhood association might have written a letter of approval, but I want to know: have you gotten any pushback from?
So I think primarily the pushback has been on the topic we're discussing today, which is the demolition of 3 historic buildings. We went through and have gone through on every project sort of the prescribed channels for the neighborhood process. So the conversation began immediately by reaching out to the stakeholders who have the ability to engage with the neighborhood and the public opinion. And so when we met with Mark Abbott initially, who is, and Debbie Pratt, who's the head of the Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association, they have a very defined process. And so we followed their defined process, which essentially was to meet with them. They would then bring that up with the development committee, which would then make a recommendation to meet with the Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association. So we had a presentation, I believe it was in March, and then a subsequent larger all Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association presentation. I think that was March 19th or 17th. And at that point, the project was presented. The Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association went back, then did an entire survey for all the members of the Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association saying, please provide input on these projects, and the feedback came back, which was then stipulated in the letter of support that they provided to us. So outside of that, I mean, I feel like as a developer, you don't want to go and necessarily start, encouraging people to vote yes on your project when you already have the processes in place. So that's a long-winded answer of saying we did not necessarily go out and get feedback directly from our residents because that was prescribed to us through the Tower Grove South Neighborhood Association.
One other question. Do you see this, I don't know if you're familiar with like Skinker de Bolivar neighborhood on Pershing, how all of a sudden it was this cute, charming neighborhood and now there's like a lot of buildings like this and I think it's lost the charm. Is that like the direction you all are going in, or is this the last project, or what are you?
So currently it's our last project. We don't have anything else slated for that neighborhood. I think The scale and size of the projects in Skanka Devolver are considerably larger than this. We have a 26-unit building that exists, a 27-unit building that's under construction, and now we're proposing a 36-unit. I believe a lot of the developments over at Devolver and Pershing are sort of in the hundreds, and they're, few of them were built based on TOD principles. Ours really are more neighborhood scale boutique projects. We have a wait list for Morgan Ford, so we know the demand is here. We know that people want to live in the neighborhood, but outside of the historic district, from Arsenal down to the railway by Alpha Brewing and the Guarantee Electrical, there's a pretty eclectic mix of buildings. And I would urge everyone to drive down and just take a look. I mean, 7-Eleven, obviously not the most attractive building, is right in between two of our contemporary buildings. And you have a mix of historic, contemporary, industrial, residential, which I think is a really good positive. But you also have a good, strong, stable business district. And so for us, in order to continue to make these neighborhoods in St. Louis that we like grow and add new people, I think you have to provide new housing options. And until we did 3172 Morgan Ford, there hadn't been a new construction project in Tower Grove South for about a decade plus. We leased that building up in 3 minutes, knowing that if you're moving here from a different city, there weren't necessarily other options, or you might not have wanted to buy a house. And Tower Grove South has become a really, it's probably the fastest price increasing neighborhood across the city of St. Louis. I think for us, we know that architecturally, we can't please everyone. That's a given. But what we can say is, like, objective data, like, we have X number of people that have moved here from a different state. They love it. And then when they do move out, they're moving into adjacent neighborhoods. So Benton Park, Tower Grove East, Shore, Dutchtown, and they're buying homes. And these are people, so for us, and I don't want to wax on too much and get emotional, but it's really cool to see people sort of like myself who perhaps reluctantly moved to St. Louis, move here, and then have somewhere that feels comfortable, feels analogous to what they may have lived in Dallas or DC, and then start to kind of explore the city and love it and stay. And to me, that's the best victory. So obviously, in lieu of demolishing 3 historic structures, we do feel like the impact would be amazing to have 40 new residents in the city of St. Louis.
Have you? I understand what you guys are trying to do, and I love it, but it's very hard to say just demolish 3 good standing historic buildings. You know, have you guys looked a little bit further south down Morgan Ford, where that could call for more? You know that.
So. No.
You could rescape that area to make it look nice. You know what I mean? Like
we haven't really, primarily
Okay.
because obviously you have to find property that you can actually buy.
I get
That's not
that.
that's
Yeah.
saying that wouldn't come to us in the future, but obviously there was stuff that we could acquire that was listed for sale and we bought it. So now we have to figure out what to do with the current slate of properties in front of us. And so that was really, and truthfully, you know, we've had success here, so it makes more sense to continue to replicate that success a block away than to test, you know, a little further south in the neighborhood. Truthfully, I think as you go further south, there are more and more industrial buildings, which are owned by people that don't necessarily want to sell. But then also the rents wouldn't necessarily be there to support a project like this, and I might have to come back to a different committee with a new project that says, hey, in fact, in order to make this project viable, we do have to ask for incentives, and we as a developer are trying to move away from that in neighborhoods like this that we know can support market rate rate housing.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, I understand what you guys are doing, but it's tough.
Catherine, are you making a question?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. I grew up in Tower Grove, great place, lots of fond memories. I have a question about the reuse potential. So I'm familiar with that sandwich shop that was there for, I don't know, a couple years maybe, I'm not sure. It was owned by like seasoned business owners that knew what they were doing, and that sandwich shop did not last very long. And so do you know why that was? Do you know if it closed due to?
We didn't own the building during the sandwich shop era.
Right, I just thought maybe you would know. Was it lack of business? Was it that the building is not suitable for reuse?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. My next question is, I agree that the greenery is a little sad, and maybe the neighborhood told you should do that. I'm curious if you all have considered public art instead.
Yeah, so this is something that has been our original rendering, and
Okay.
really just, we didn't want to have to pay to update it on art that was subjective that could very easily change. So we're more than open to doing public art. We're also open to doing a different type of green wall if needed. I personally used MSD's rainscaping grant on my own home on Utah. It was awesome. I'd love to do something like that. I think the neighborhood association would have more input on art or design, and that is a minor aspect of this project that we're absolutely willing to do what we can to try and keep the streetscape as activated as possible. I mean, right now, there's not a ton of activity
Great.
on that corner other than the one existing business.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheryl Wittenauer. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, can you hear me? Am I using this correctly? So my name is Cheryl Wittenauer, and my husband and I live at 4346 Juniata, which is on the west side of Morgan Ford, one in the very first block west of Morgan Ford. We live in a house that was built in 1896, and we're very proud of it and love it, love our neighborhood. When we moved to the neighborhood in 2003, and that's, we're fairly recent residents. There's a lot of people that were living there in the 80s and 90s who tell horror stories about the rough transition. But when we moved there in 2003, it was, Morgan Ford was a ghost town. The only business I can remember is the 7-Eleven and a funky nightclub at the corner of Juniata and Morgan Ford. So moving into that neighborhood was a big investment risk. We considered ourselves urban pioneers, and we we moved there because we wanted to make the neighborhood better and invest in it, but it was a risk. And we saw the neighborhood slowly, 1 year at a time, kind of build up, and small businesses come into being. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And one of the small businesses that opened was Local Harvest. And it moved into that lovely little tiny building and prospered and got the community's backing and love. And I was one of about 500 people who stood along Morgan Ford on a very cold day in February of 2005, or maybe it was 2003, I don't remember. It was very early. And they moved from that corner place to the big store where it is now, and we handed each other inventory one at a time. And there was just a lot of love for that neighborhood and a lot of love for the small businesses, which will be precluded from opening as we get these new massive buildings. I have to laugh when I see or when I hear that this building is made of, natural native materials. This building looks exactly like my periodontist's office in Creve Coeur off of Ballas Road, and I am not exaggerating. This does not belong in Tower Grove South. It doesn't belong in the city. It belongs in O'Fallon, Baldwin, Creve Coeur. When people new to the city of St. Louis come to our city, or at least they used to come to our city, they are awestruck by the beauty of the brick. We are the brick city. It's our wheelhouse. It's what we should be marketing ourselves on, and we have to some extent. This is out of character completely with the fabric of Tower Grove South and of the city of St. Louis. We're seeing these kinds of buildings constructed in the Bolivar neighborhood, along Choteau, just on the edge of Central West End, and along Forest Park Boulevard. It's ruining our city. I mean, I understand people need housing, but this housing is high-priced housing, and it's also keeping people it's jacking up the local prices, and people can't afford to live in this neighborhood in the first place. They won't be able to afford to live in this neighborhood because this is jacking up the price. I know this commission is not focused on that. You're focused on the aesthetics. I don't like the aesthetic of this building, and I know everybody, it's a subjective opinion. I get that. But it's jarring. It obstructs the view of our beloved Tower Grove Park. I mean, you all were asking about what does the community think? What does the neighborhood think? There was, when we first learned about this, we received, because I lived in the first block outside, within the first block of the proposed development, I received a little notice on my door saying, come to this meeting at Black Sheep Restaurant, which is owned by Rob. And so there was a group of people who met, neighborhood people, and I can't remember if it was April or March. It was a chilly month. And it was well attended, and there was a lot of people who were opposed. It was a very, very lively conversation about the pros and cons of this development. So I don't want you to get the impression that everybody in Tower Grove South is for this project. I'm very sorry that my neighbors and people in the community are not here. There was a lively discussion. The proposal was made at the Tower Grove South neighborhood meeting, and not Rob, but another one of his colleagues made the proposal. We were not allowed to ask questions. We were allowed to write down on little comments on a card, and that was it. And then there was a survey, and I never learned what the results of the survey was. I just found out about this meeting by accident because I saw it posted on the Tower Grove South Facebook page. I just want you to know that the neighborhood is not all in favor of this. That people have grave concerns about the density, about its jutting out into the street, and it just doesn't belong. It's a nice enough building, okay, but it doesn't belong in Tower Grove South. I will say, too, that our new alderwoman, Daniela Velasquez, who apparently likes it, is from Baldwin, okay? She's a recent, I'm not trying to be snarky, but she just recently moved to Shaw a short time ago, and she grew up in Baldwin. This is what she's used to. This is not who we are. And I'll let it go at that. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Heather Donahue?
That was great.
You do
Hi.
not need to invoke Baldwin.
Hi there. My name is Heather Donahue. I am a longtime resident of the neighborhood just north of the park since 2007. I'm a renter in a 4-family on Flora Avenue, not Flora Place. One bedroom shotgun apartment that I share with my partner of 8 years, and I've lived there for longer than him, obviously. The Morgan Ford neighborhood is very vibrant community. It's very working class, and in the last few years, the rent has raised astronomically, and many of those people have gotten pushed out of the neighborhood. When I hear about an $11 million project that has to have 4 stories to sustain the rent being affordable, my rent is affordable. It's $750 because I've lived there for 15 years, and I'm lucky that my landlord's only raised the rent when the trash fees go up, or it probably will get raised when the water fees go up just in a few months. That just got approved at City Hall. This neighborhood means a lot to me. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law got married at Tower Pub. I was close with the family of Carl from A&M Bike Shop. I went to his funeral there. The sense of community that she's speaking of is so palpable. I worked at Amsterdam for a summer just for the World Cup because they needed extra help. These neighbors really help each other out. I go to the hair salon that the beautiful building it is in, and I often sit on the bench while my hair is processing and watch who walks by to walk to the bus stop. And this is the first time I've seen this rendering of the drawing, but it does entirely eliminate all the green space in that corner, which 7-Eleven is an entire parking lot. That area gets hot with the blacktop. And there's already a sparse amount of parking. I can't imagine how you're going to sustain 15 units on this to let them park, especially if there's a game at Amsterdam. And there's plenty of opportunities south of this. Those box brick buildings that were built in the 60s for low-income housing. I mean, why couldn't we the developers look at something like that to demolish and rebuild and connect the walkability of the neighborhood from the Tower Grove Farmers Market to, Beeville Mill, where there are other business owners down there that I'm also friends with and in community with. I'm going to the Silver Ballroom after this. I just don't see the benefit in demolishing these freestanding buildings. Just in 2010, I remember all of the Morgan Ford businesses got those cute bike racks that are still maybe not current with the businesses that reside there. TFA Antiques, it moved out. Local Harvest, the restaurant obviously isn't there anymore. But as the neighborhood changes, the people that work and live in that neighborhood and walk around, and it's important for them to be able to walk to their bar job at work, aren't going to be able to afford $1,500 rent, and they already have been pushed out of that area. So I just wanted to come today. I found out about this from the Tower Grove South Facebook neighborhood post, and the comments in there were like, why haven't we heard of this sooner? So, they may have been talking to business owners, but the regular people that live in the neighborhood, and especially people like me who are service workers that make under $40,000 a year, we'd be spending our one pay period on our rent and just to stay in our neighborhood. How does that make sense? But, I think that's all I have to say unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Allen, have you got a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Preservation Board withhold preliminary approval for the demolition of the 3 buildings and the construction of the 4-story apartment building.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Well, I think that we have 3 viable buildings. The reuse potential wasn't considered. I think that this is a district where the balance of what's better than what's there is at question, and it seems like there's some pretty strong sentiment that these 3 buildings, especially the building with the turret, are not, or the building proposal is not as great there. And I just think the developer understands what he's doing and his concern about developing his neighborhood in the city, but his remarks about what people coming from Dallas and Seattle would want to see on this site are at odds with the purpose of this board. We are here to protect what's unique about St. Louis, including these 3 buildings.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if these buildings were falling down and not merit standing, I would say demolish them and let's put something else there. But I just see no reason to demolish 3 perfectly good standing buildings. And I understand about maybe nothing's for sale down the street, but I don't think that should affect our opinion on 3 good standing buildings because there's nothing else available to get rid of these buildings.
Commissioner Hammaker?
I think it's a good proposal. I think it'll add a lot of residents to the city. I grew up in Tower Grove, and I think part of the reason I don't live there is because there's not something that's really ideal for my life stage. As soon as I moved out of my parents' house in Tower Grove East, I never moved back because I couldn't find a convenient place to live. So I think it's important to think about what a lot of people need, and for some people, historic buildings aren't what they're looking for. I think the developer has a good track record. I think we could tie approval to a building permit to make sure the buildings don't get torn down for nothing to happen. I don't know.
I would not be opposed of them. I guess my problem is let's just tear it down and that's all. They haven't even looked at the reuse and tying in the other buildings. Yes, that may be more expensive. And I get the growing city thing. I lived in DC, I've lived in these thriving cities. I work with relocation people all the time that are coming into St. Louis. But I also want to protect the charm of these neighborhoods and why are people attracted to them. And I'm just nervous it's going to turn into, in my mind, a Pershing situation over in the developer Skinker neighborhood. So maybe there's a resolution where we can tie these buildings and still be able to create your idea. But I just hate to just get rid of 3 good historic buildings.
Commissioner Killeen?
Nothing to add.
Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no on the motion?
Aye.
Commissioner Hammaker, aye or nay?
No.
Commissioner Hamilton, aye or nay?
Yes, aye.
Sorry. Commissioner Killeen, aye or nay? Aye. Chair abstains. That is 3 ayes, 1 no. The motion is upheld, and the preliminary review is withheld. Preliminary approval is withheld. Thank you, commissioners. Let's go to agenda item B. Is the Muni rep here? Is the Muni person here?
Hang on just a second. Don't seem to be in the. Oh, God. Not sure it's on here. Yeah, so, well, and this appears to have been my fault. This proposal was for a backstage pergola to shelter scenery for the Muni. And it is absolutely invisible from anywhere outside the backstage area of the Muni. So I don't know whether you want to consider it or defer it until the next one. But it is essentially a Board of Public Service referral because we review anything that happens within city
We're ready to
parks.
proceed.
I'm sorry?
We're ready to proceed.
What's your recommendation?
We recommend that since it's not visible from anywhere, it's totally private, that the board recommend to the Board of Public Service that the project should be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. I'll call a roll. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains. That is 4 yeses, and the recommendation moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
What time is it? Want to take a 5-minute break? Yeah. Okay, 5-minute break. We are back in session. We'll be doing things a little bit differently in the second half of this meeting. These will be appeals of director's denials and administrative denials. I will ask the people who testify to tell us their names, their zip codes, and to affirm or swear that their testimony is going to be the truth. We're building administrative records, so everything that you want us to consider will have to be submitted for the record. Beginning with 2005 South Grand Boulevard.
Okay, Bob Bettis with staff. I'll tell the truth. I need to enter in the enabling ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925 and the Shaw ordinance 59400, my staff report and my presentation. Okay, so we are at 2005 South Grand. This is in the Shaw neighborhood, right at the corner of Castleman and South Grand. This is the lot for the Water Tower Place condos. You see at your left on the photograph on your right, this is their private lot for the residents of that condo. Currently, it is open. There is no any kind of gate or barrier that blocks it from the Castleman entrance. And that's the only access to the parking lot is off of Castleman. The proposal is to erect a barrier arm on the Castleman side to prevent people from coming in and out and just have the residents only on there. The Shaw Code defines barrier arms, walls, fences, as a way to block the property. And it says that you can't have it in front of the building line. The proposal for the barrier arm, which you can see, I can't really tell. Sorry, it's kind of washed out here, guys. I apologize. But the arm will go right here, which is in front of the property line along the Castleman side. So by definition, it does not meet the ordinance. So I'll give you some more. This is a better shot. You can see the yellow is the location of the proposed arm. Again, it sits in front of the building line on Castleman. This is the proposed arm. It'll be flanked by 2 bollards, and then there'll be another bollard at the end of the arm itself. It shows you the location. When I was out there getting site pics for this presentation, there were several cars coming in and out, parking illegally. So I was having a hard time getting pictures because I kept having people who were blocking the way they're using the other apartment building across the street. So there was some issues with traffic that day as well, just for me trying to get photographs of the site. Again, context-wise, you're across from the Continental Reservoir to the east, and then looking back down Castleman, and there's a large apartment building to the north. And here's kind of aerial shot giving you an overall. So again, the code says you can't have any kind of barrier in front of the building line, and that's why staff denied the application for the permit. So staff recommends, though, that the board uphold the director's denial as the proposed enclosure does not meet the standards. Any questions?
Commissioners, is there anybody who wants to hear any more about this?
No.
Is there anything they can adjust to make it meet the standard?
Yeah.
No, so if they were to do that, they would have to move it back to the property line along Castleman, and you would lose several spots. So if you, let me show you, if you go back, that's the wrong way. I should also note the Shaw neighborhood is in support of the applicant. So if they were to move it back, you're going to lose, I believe, a handicap spot as well as 2 other spots to try to incorporate the arm at the building line on Castleman. So they will lose several spots.
You said they are in support?
They are in support.
Of this?
Yeah, Shaw
Yeah.
is in support of the proposal.
Is this the only thing you guys have come up with, or anything, this barrier, have you come up?
Like, could
Are there any other options? It looks
Instead of
kind
white, red, could it be red,
So-
white, red, white?
So actually, when it came in, actually, Jan said, can you get different colors on it? I talked to the supplier, he goes, no, this is the only color they offer. It's because they want people to see it. You know,
that's the
it's
point,
supposed to be visible. So even if you were to do, let's just say, like a black chain link fence, the issue is still the location at the building line. It still
Yeah.
wouldn't be compliant. So no matter what you propose at the location, it would not be compliant.
Is the appellant present?
He is.
Would you come up, tell us your name, please?
Hello, my name is Bill Richardson.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes,
Will you take some questions from us?
of course.
Ask him.
Are there any other options? I know we're discussing the actual location of this, but have you come up with any other options besides this red and white thing?
Because of the location and the layout of our parking lot, as you can see, we come off of Castleman onto our parking lot. There's one entrance and exit, and looking at the barrier arm, that was the only viable option. If you take a look at a chain link fence and gate, you have to have enough to anchor that gate and to carry that weight and support. And generally, when you see a gate, it's anchored by 2 walls of a building, and it has that counterweight to hold it. With the way our parking lot is structured, that wasn't viable. I moved to the city in November of 1987, so I've been here a while. Over the years, the neighborhood has transformed. There's a big difference between then and now. We have a major problem with groups of people parking on that lot.
I think we're going to do this.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Hammaker, a motion?
Yes.
Oh.
I move
Already
that the preservation board reverse the director's denial and approve the parking lot barrier.
Second.
There.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm
I
going to
didn't
call
know
the roll. Really,
Oh, no.
Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Aye.
Commissioner Hammaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Levine, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this vote. There are 4 yeses, 1 abstention. The appeal is upheld.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. We live here too. Okay, calling agenda item D.
Okay, so last month, the item was heard. The board had some requests of the applicant to provide some financial information. You were sent the packet for what she supplied.
Let's take a few minutes and talk about that packet.
Okay.
She is not present. She is on vacation. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at it?
Yes.
No.
Did you see it?
We got an email to us.
You know, it was in your emails.
Just got back from vacation.
Got it.
Me too. As in Chicago.
I was up there.
That's a vacation, oh, really?
Well, a little north of there, Michigan.
Yeah.
Where was it again?
Do we want to have any kind of a discussion? Do we want to make a decision today, or what?
Can we defer till after her vacation?
Could.
Do we know when she returns? Will she definitely be able to attend the August meeting? I don't think we want to defer it too long.
Well, no, she can be in attendance the August 28th meeting. She, after the motion was made to defer 1 month at the last meeting, we were outside discussing it, and she forgot about her vacation, so I, brought that up to a few members of the board. So she apologizes, but, she got you the information that she wanted to give you.
I mean, I would be happy to defer until August.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any objection?
Or,
We will
No.
just keep this matter open, and we'll take it up at the next meeting.
If I could say one thing, if there's anything else you may want to see from her, feel free to email staff, and we can also ask.
I wouldn't mind seeing evidence of financial hardship,
same.
Yes, sir.
because that did not seem to be in that package.
That passed unanimously, but,
It wasn't even a motion.
oh, okay, because Mr. Killeen definitely made a motion and Mr. Allen definitely seconded a motion.
And I definitely ignored it.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's do agenda item E.
I am Andrea Gagan. I swear to tell the truth. This is actually, they changed the number on this because the original application, they had 1800 South 10th, but the lot is actually 1806 South 10th Street. So when they reapplied, they actually got the right number. This is an appeal of a staff denial, or a director's denial.
But we've seen this before, right?
Yes, but it's a new we had, because of the time, and everything, we had to, and because the original appeal was, they upheld the appeal, so it didn't get passed, so she reapplied and we denied it again.
Thank you.
And bring it back.
Wait, I did not understand what happened. What did we do?
So, this is not an appeal of the original application, because since last time the appeal was upheld, but they instructed us to work with the applicant to make something that would be more in keeping with the standards.
You did not reach that.
Well, the problem is that there's no way to make this meet the standards. So we had to bring it back.
So you worked with
Right.
her to get something closer, and now you're bringing it back again because you can't approve it. on your
Right,
own?
we cannot approve
Okay,
it on
got
staff
it.
level.
Thank you.
So I wanted to enter into the record the enabling ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925. The Soulard Local Historic District Ordinance 57078 is amended by 62382. The agenda, the PowerPoint presentation, and the application. This is the location. And this is the view of the pergola as it is now. As you can see, the plastic that was on the sides has been removed. Plastic on the roof is still there as right now. This is just some shots of what it looked like previously. Just the context. The owner did work with the Soulard Restoration Group before we got really involved. And they did write a letter. They not particularly happy about the pergola, but they made some suggestions that they thought would make it better. One of them was to remove all of the plastic, including what was on the roof. And that's what the owner is applying for now, is just basically the pergola as it is without the, with the roof plastic removed. Our office also suggested that maybe that it could be painted or stained to kind of blend it so it's not just a raw wood structure. But that is not what the applicant's applying for. She is applying for this without, with the plastic removed from the roof.
Is there no model example in a garden, the Soulard Community Garden? I mean, anywhere in the neighborhood that?
Not probably that is old enough to be a model example.
Okay, right. So we're all just kind
And
of
usually not in a side yard
fishing
up
for
the street.
a way
so-
out here.
Right.
So refreshing our memory on this went up without a permit?
Yes, yes.
Have things changed in Soulard? I helped, what's the name of the bar on Sydney Street years ago? And remember, Jan, I had to go through you to try to find a model example. They wanted to do the same thing, and it was a difficult task.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is it the Calypso bar around the corner from this? It has garage doors facing the street
Right.
now. So have they kind of loosened their standards for buildings, for bars?
I mean, I think they try to work with them, just because, you know, there are obviously a lot of bars in Soulard. You know, trying to find a model example for an addition to a building is not the easiest when it's that type of structure. I mean, because they just weren't, they didn't.
Well, I always say, look at the old beer garden. You guys have
Right.
heard me say that before.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
I just
Beer
want to
gardens
put a
would be the
brick
only-
wall up here and maybe arches on this, paint it all black.
Well, that was one of the other suggestions by the restoration, Soulard Restoration Group, was to put a wall, although they wanted a cornice on it, which I thought was kind of weird, but they, and that was kind of their thing, but they wanted it to have like an actual like roof on it, like with asphalt shingles and everything, which I didn't know that we wanted to make this heavier than it already is now, but I mean, I see what you're saying about it.
If you push it too far down that road, does it become a flounder? And,
Well, that's.
and then we need a whole different model example.
I think with the side, because it's not a very large structure, you know, making it putting too much on it, kind of just, it doesn't work as, with the scale of it.
If I could just say one thing, is if it were stained or painted dark,
It looked
it would be much more appropriate and not so obvious.
Yeah, I know.
So the removing the roof is part of the proposal,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes, she has agreed to remove the roof.
Just the plastic, not the rafters.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
I guess I'm like starting, then what purpose
So
does
yeah,
it
what's the
serve?
point? Yeah, I don't get it.
Oh, they come back as a new roof?
No, you
would
could ask the
still be able to
applicant.
push it
Do I have an apple?
Yeah, is that what
I think that's the applicant.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Can we ask her some questions?
Yeah, I don't understand. Could you just?
Let's finish with us.
Sorry.
So,
Questions for staff?
yes.
Recommendation.
Yes, so the Cultural Resources Office staff is still has to recommend to uphold the appeal because the pergola does not meet the historic district standards because it's not based on model example.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the appellant, please. And thank you for your patience.
Hello. Lori Fisk Simpson. I swear to tell the truth.
Perfect.
Great. So, yes, we are here one more time. Just in general, since we've opened in 2019, every winter we've put out a tacky circus tent to winterize the park. So we thought that a permanent structure was kind of in order at this point in time since we'd been here for 5 years. So we rent the building, so we did get approval from them. I hired a professional contractor, so unfortunately he didn't follow the correct steps to do the permit, so that's why we are here. I know that this basically stabilizes everything for the winter and weather conditions and whatnot, to make our park open to the public like all seasons round. But even though this is not based on a model example, I did present several examples from the neighborhood last appeal in which the Soulard Restoration Group wasn't necessarily, they're still kind of skeptical. So as Andrea said, we did discuss what would be acceptable to them. And so I did remove the sides. I am removing the top plastic because the SRG wants this treated as a true pergola. So they did send that approval letter, which I think kind of stopped us from going forward last time. And I'm still like willing to make any modifications that aren't outrageously expensive.
What will the structure do without a roof or sides?
I guess then it just presents shade to the customers, so it's kind of a waste of money at that point. But that's all I can do to keep this thing up.
I'm not even sure how it provides shade.
It kind of does at different times, and I have umbrellas for other tables too, but it was supposed to be an all-weather solution for the park.
Did you hear Commissioner Colleen's suggestion?
Yes, the paint, that was a newer suggestion.
He was the wall guy.
That was wall plus stain.
Oh, wall.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I'd have to get estimates and review what my bank account looks like. But I am willing to make modifications, and least expensive would be ideal. So the roof can be removed right away. And if it was just paint, that can also be applied pretty quickly.
So if we were to deny this appeal, it would probably take several months to get this thing down. And then it would be September or October. They could figure out what it is that they really wanted to do. Just thinking out loud.
You mind if I brainstorm just a little bit? Okay. So one
I'm sorry,
suggestion.
it's your presentation. Do you mind if he brainstorms?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I know that brick wall idea, that's an expensive idea. So I think it would just be less obtrusive if since you're taking the roof off anyway and it's just becoming a trellis, if it didn't have the slope, that contractor owes you a favor.
Yeah.
So get him to come back out here, rehang all these things so they come straight out and stain the thing, and I think arches would be a nice little touch. It feels a little bit more historic. So I wonder if he'd just do that for you to save face. I don't know if you guys are still talking.
Stain and flatten it out.
I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
I do agree that flattened and then stained or painted black would be.
And then maybe paint these concrete things green, because those really stand out.
Yeah. Can you, is she allowed to have, like, the plastic roll up that you pull down, you know what I mean, that like lets out for coverage in the winter? And then maybe that'll also help you with your situation.
She's always got the circus tent.
True.
That might look better than this.
Because, I mean, the accommodations we suggested for, the accommodations she's agreed to have really turned it into a trellis.
Right, that's the struggle I'm having, is I can think of ways to make it look nicer, but then it's essentially useless for her purposes, so then I just wish the contractor was here to be punished.
Maybe we just,
Because we do not want to punish you.
Right, that's why I feel like we're in a
And
tricky
we see
spot.
what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And we're limited by an ordinance that requires there to be a model example of something. And we we could have saved you all this money if your contractor
Right.
had gotten the permit, and they would have said no, but maybe you could do this.
Yeah.
So it was Big Daddy's, that was the name of the barn.
Big Daddy's,
So,
yeah.
We did something similar to this, and we did have to put those arches in.
And Big Daddy's is black as
Yeah, it's
well.
black.
Yeah, that would make a difference.
Right.
And then I think, I'd be fine with, then you could put little shade structures,
Yeah.
like fabric underneath.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then it
And
it
it
helps.
really is a shade thing.
Right.
That's
What
an
does our
idea.
staff think about
And
this?
then at the end of the day, when the sun comes down, you could roll something down.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, your still position is deny, right?
We can't approve that.
I like that. I
But
like
that's
that.
temporary anyway.
No, they would need a permit,
They would need a permit.
which means
This
that
time.
the permit would go there,
Ah,
right?
So we could motion to approve something with all these.
What we could do today is deny the appeal and instruct staff to go back and work with them to figure this out.
Then we'd have to bring it back again.
Jeez.
So, listening
got
to
time.
us now,
third time could be a charm.
Yeah.
listening to us now, you have a pretty good idea of what we would approve.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
black
Yeah,
arches.
try to flatten the roof.
Come back here.
Are we
Yeah.
here in August?
Yeah, and that's treated wood. I don't know how well it would hold paint. So,
Maybe a dark stain.
yes, it might hold
Yeah.
stain better. It's been up for more than a year though, right?
No, it's been up since November.
So I think it's about 6 months when you're okay to do stuff.
Start, yeah, staining it or
So
painting.
just make sure when you think about, I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, when you think about your roof line, if you can attach a shade structure underneath.
motion that just lists those 4 things.
That's what I was wondering. Can
Yeah.
we approve this as amended and then the amendments are our requirements and then
And
she
work
doesn't
out
have to come
details with
back?
staff.
So let's have Mike list it, because he knows what to say.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. I guess I owe you that because
Don't-
of the pizza last
You
night.
can't slip the brick in though, Mike.
Yeah, no,
Do this like
no,
a
you can't
professional.
slip in the brick.
I have no option, so I'll do whatever that's economical.
I move that the Preservation Board overturn the director's denial. And I further move that we would approve, or we would approve of a design that took the rafters that are here and flattened them out. Probably need to cut them when you do that too, because they're gonna be really long. Adds arches.
I knew my geometry would come in handy someday.
You know what I mean?
Got it.
And then paints it black. or-
Stains the whole thing a dark color
Yeah.
to be
Dark,
approved by
dark.
staff. And
Paints the concrete.
Paints the concrete.
Okay.
It can have the shade things if they want, the fabric.
And it
Are
can
you-
add the shade.
Because then that'll create your purpose that you can
Is that
start.
the
Right.
craziest motion
Yeah.
you've ever
Well, I'm trying to get my head around it. Are you asking that her appeal be upheld with the following conditions and then make sure I understand what they are?
No, we're trying to
Overturn.
overturn the
with
appeal
conditions.
with the
Can do that.
conditions that
I
she
don't
works
have-
these things out with staff.
Okay, so we could just do 2 motions, overturn the director's denial.
Then I think that.
If we overturn the director's denial, then she could do this,
Oh,
which we're trying not to do.
Well, can't we overturn the director's denial with conditions?
No.
Just like we do
Because we're not
I
overturning.
think we have to uphold the director's denial and build a record that says what we would approve.
Okay.
And then bring this back for preliminary?
I mean, or in other words,
or-
if it's in a 536 appeal, she could appeal this to circuit court, or she could come up with a new design and file for a new permit. I mean, those are all things that could happen.
Is
just
there,
trying to save
is there,
us some trouble.
with what Mr. Colleen is saying, could staff approve this without bringing it back to us, if it came as a permit? Yeah, okay, all right.
Can we just put her first on the agenda next time?
Yeah, we could.
If
Yeah,
she's
yes, Bob.
requesting it.
We'll try to figure out, could you deny it, or overturn the denial, subject to these 4 things?
That's what,
Yes.
That's what we're trying to, yeah.
So that way, it's overturning it only if you do these things, and the permit is modified, it's still open.
That
Is
works,
that appropriate?
oh,
okay.
Right.
I think that's what we wanna do.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we wanna do.
Every set
Okay.
a certain way.
So it's,
Great.
it's flatten out the rafters, add arches,
Stain it.
stain it dark,
paint the
paint
little
the
footers.
concrete.
Okay, so your motion,
Second.
and I'm just asking you, I'm not telling you, your motion is to uphold the appeal, subject to the following conditions: to flatten the rafters and arches, stain, to darken and
stain.
paint.
All wood
concrete.
members. Yeah, dark stain, all wood members.
Okay.
Say uphold or say overturn?
She said uphold the appeal
Yeah, that's what I
or
said.
overturn the denial. Same thing, right?
Potato, potato.
Right. It's just the reverse.
Do we want
Do you want to add the fabric thing so no one goes after her and tells her she has to take it down?
That's a temporary thing.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I don't think she'd be in trouble for that.
Definitely.
Now,
Right.
the question is, in what time frame?
That she has to do that?
Yeah.
How long do you need?
The end of probably a month or two.
In 2 months?
Did you say September?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 months.
Into September.
By end of September?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Great.
That sounds okay to me.
Yeah.
That's great.
Then we don't
I
have to
second
do this
that.
again.
Bob was trying to.
Yes, Bob?
I just want to make sure, because I feel like the way you're saying it, we're going to have an internal problem approving it. So can we please say one more time how you worded it to start? Be very clear, just
That's a Barb question.
Well, I'm gonna just give you my take on it, and if I'm miscapturing it, tell me. I'm understanding that you want to uphold the appellate's appeal subject to the following conditions: that, flatten the rafters, add the arches, darken, stain all wood members.
say
and-
overturn the director's denial subject to.
Right.
That way, if you overturn the director's denial, then we have the wiggle room to actually approve the permit based on what.
Yeah, that's
Right.
Yeah.
But don't
Yeah.
say.
Don't say the
because
uphold
then
thing.
Our director might not like the way that's worded.
Yeah, but she's like,
She's not here.
she's in a different country.
She will be back though.
Where's she?
In
I'm trying
Netherlands.
to make this as seamless as possible.
She will be back.
You're watching right now.
All right, we're squabbling among ourselves trying to figure out how to do this.
Great. He moved, I seconded.
Okay? Any discussion? Do you understand what we're doing?
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded and repeated many, many times. Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Helene, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this motion. There are 4 yeses, 1 abstention, and the motion carries.
Great.
Where'd you go? There you go. Okay.
Thank
No, you're
you.
fine. Staff, will somebody?
Someone will
talk
circle
about
up with her.
Okay. Let's do our final agenda item.
Just please.
Okay, this, I'm Andrea Gagan, I still swear to tell the truth. Need to enter into the enabling ordinance 64689 is amended by 64925. The Cherokee Limp Historic District Ordinance 59836. The Limporary Landmark Ordinance 64053. The agenda, the PowerPoint presentation application. Okay, this is an application to remove the top 3 stories of the building number 20, 3500 Limp Avenue. This is the location along Cherokee Street. This is the collapsed west wing that I believe it was in 2020 that collapsed. And this, the other, is the existing view of the east wing. On the left is damage that happened to the east wing January of this year due to freeze-thaw issues, and additional wind damage that happened in May of this year. This is photo of some of the interior bowing on that wall that you just saw, and some of the damage, close-up of the damage to the east wall. On the left is the proposed removal, the 3 stories that are proposed to be moved, and on the right is what it would look like after that removal. And this is, again, showing the east elevation, showing the removal and the result. The building, the applicant has applied, as I said, has applied to remove the top 3 stories of the east wing of the building 20, which faces the 1300 block of Cherokee. The west wing of building 20 collapsed in 2020. There were some efforts made to stabilize the east wing after that collapse. And additional damage occurred in late December and May of 2023.
Can you outline what those efforts were?
There was, they had a permit to, it, kind of hard to explain. I think it was in your, it was in your packet that you should receive. Basically, they were doing ties through the building to try to stabilize the walls. Not all of that, most of that didn't be done because they couldn't get someone to actually do the work. But there were they did have a previous permit for some interior, and they finished on the west side. They did some stabilization of the wall that was there.
The bulk of their effort was to apply for a permit?
What?
The bulk of their effort was to apply for a permit?
Yes, I mean, there was some of it that was completed, but the owner can probably tell you better what exactly they did.
Well, I'm just looking.
What they finished.
I'm looking for the foundation for your recommendation.
Right. Basically, as it currently stands, they haven't been able to find someone to do stabilization work to the whole side of the building, because of the weight loads in the upper stories and the condition of the lower story walls. They haven't been able to find a contractor that will actually do it because it is structurally it's in dangerous structural condition at this point. And what they're proposing is to remove that weight load, and so they can stabilize the bottom stories.
Is your testimony that the building is not sound under the definition?
Yeah, I would say that yes, that's correct. The person from Neighborhood Stabilization that had gone out there to look at it said currently it is unstable. If it was fixed, it could be stabilized, but at this point it is unsound.
Unsound under our definition.
He actually said that it was unsafe and it's been.
Right. Yes.
I'm just looking to see how it relates to our ordinance.
It's a guessing game. You never know.
Gulf Resources Office.
I'm starting to like the side of the table that doesn't have any sound at all. Compared to the side of the table that has awful sound.
And they did have a letter of support from the Cherokee Limp Special Business District. The Cultural Resource Office recommends the preservation overturn the administrative denial of the partial demolition due to the structural condition of Building 20. And the owner has he has presentation as well.
I don't think we need to.
We may have more questions.
Okay.
So this doesn't address the collapse that happened a few years ago, right?
No.
What's happening with that site?
Basically, it's just being cleaned up. And the owner can probably speak to that better than I can exactly what. There was some stabilization to that back wall. They basically tuck pointed and finished off that wall, so it wasn't just hanging out there.
So does this fall within the Benton Park District, or?
No,
is it
it's in
own?
Cherokee Limp.
Cherokee Limp.
It's in the Cherokee Limp Local Historic District and, well, it's in the Benton Park National Register District, but that isn't really. It is in the Cherokee Limp Local Historic District, and it is a city landmark with its own standards.
So, when a building collapses in a district, or in this district, is there any rule that says you gotta put it back, put Humpty Dumpty back together again? Or is it
Not
just
really, no.
No, okay. So that's just gonna be a vacant.
Yeah, I mean, the part of the issue with this building is that the ends don't, there's not floors in all of it. There were silos that had kilns in the bottom of it because they were hop drying things. So the middle section has floors, but the end didn't, which is partially, I think, why it was not as stable as the center portion.
Did the kilns provide stabilization?
Well, no, I mean, the kilns, I think, probably didn't help the brick either, just because of the heat. I mean, over the years, probably did not help that any either. But, you know, it's not been in great condition for, I think, a long time.
Okay.
Do you know which contractors they contacted?
I have them somewhere. I don't have them with me. One was someone that was recommended by the city inspector that went out, but they had declined to do it. And then I can't remember the name. What? Pernikoff was the other one that they had. But the one that the inspector had suggested, they declined to do it.
Commissioners, are we going to have questions for the appellant?
No,
kinda
I
wanna
just
hear
have a
what he
question for Andy, which is, you mentioned the inspector has looked at this damage. Is it, I didn't catch, maybe I missed it. Is this currently condemned
Yes.
because of what just
Yes,
happened?
it is structurally condemned at
Okay,
this point.
thank you.
Commissioner Hannaford, you got a motion?
I requested to hear from the applicant. Sorry.
Yes.
Your name?
My name is Shashi Palamand.
Your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, it will.
Okay, what do you want to introduce into the record?
Yes, I have a PowerPoint presentation which I will go over.
Hang on, just tell me what you want to introduce
Oh,
before you start.
I'm sorry.
Before you start,
Yes.
tell me what you're going to introduce.
I'm going to introduce information as to, I'm sorry, I'm not following what I want to introduce.
Kate, what do you want to introduce? Could you outline what it is you want to introduce?
Yes, I would like to introduce a presentation to explain, to give background to the board here, to give more details, and will also put into context what the Cultural Resources is recommending, and will give a much better background as to what has occurred with this building for several years, and then to give you an idea of why we are requesting this partial demolition.
Commissioner Killeen, your question?
I'd like to hear it.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you. Sorry for the misunderstanding.
That's fine.
As you can see, this is, just give you a quick background here. That is the complex, the Lemp Brewery Complex. By the way, I am the managing member of Historic Lemp Brewery LLC, which is the owner of the complex. The subject building is shown in yellow there. And can we get to the next one? Okay. I want to mention that this structure, and I call it a structure because it's not actually a true building. It was built in with 2 stories originally in 1874, and you can see that middle band is where that was the original part of the building. The upper 3 floors were added in 1887. This structure was a hop drying kiln. It's more of a silo disguised as a building, and it did undergo extreme heat and cold cycles. It was never heated. It was a kiln. And it is not designed like any of the other buildings of the Lemp Brewery Complex, which are more conventional buildings. Having said that, the middle portion of that building is more conventionally designed with actual floors. It's the two sides, the wings or bays, which were the hop drying silos, basically. No floors were built in those by design. There were no columns. There were no tie-ins. They're basically like chimneys. Can you advance to the next one, please? This is and I mentioned it has the 3 sections. International Shoe Company purchased this property in 1922. Unfortunately, they essentially did no maintenance on this building for over 70 years. They really weren't sure what to do with it. That first picture on the left shows the building the way it was, where it has no floors, because it was a hop drying kiln. Basically, the hot air went up and out.